back to In the Points, the fastest growing Formula One podcast on the globe. I am your host, Matt Dotiel. We are having a short week this week following the Baku, Azerbaijan Grand Prix, the City of Winds. We are going right straight into Montreal. It is a double stack week for us. We have back-to-back episodes. Joined as always on the podcast with me are my co-hosts Sam Russell and Stefano Sedano. Guys, let's get racing. Welcome back to the podcast, you guys.
Thanks, Matt. Good to be here. Can't wait to talk about our buddies up north, Canada. Big week. One of my favorite tracks, actually. Very excited.
Let's give it the old razzle dazzle, gentlemen. Time to chop things up.
Yeah, let's chop things up, guys. I'm super pumped. Short weeks are tough on the podcast, boys. The podcast never sleeps. We have a lot of work ahead of us when we get 2 in a week, but I love back-to-back race weeks. Super pumped. Only gripe is that it's conflicting with the U.S. Open this weekend. 2 o'clock in the afternoon is not really an ideal time to have a race when you've got the U.S. Open in Massachusetts, about 5 miles outside of where we all live for the most part, and I like the morning races, but guys, it's first time back in Canada since 2019. As many of you may recall, that was the infamous race where Sebastian Vettel finished ahead of Lewis Hamilton, got a 5-second penalty for not coming back onto the track in a safe manner, moved the number 1 and the number 2 slots. We got a whole Canada preview to get going into later on in this episode, but first, as we teased last week's episode, or I should say 2 days ago's episode following our Baku recap, we had a listener email and the head of content, or I think it was the director of Apple TV content, reaching out to the In the Points boys. And Stefano, he reached out to you specifically. Why don't you get that email back up? Read it again for our fans. We teased that we were going to talk about this on the episode this week. Why don't you let the listeners know what the question's being asked?
Yeah, hell yeah. It reads, Dear In the Points, love the content and was curious, as the only podcast in the world growing at the speed of Formula One, what you guys thought about Apple TV picking up the streaming rights to Brad Pitt's new F1 movie. Surely with Lewis Hamilton as a producer and Joseph Kosinski, director of Top Gun 2, it should be great for the sport. I'd love to hear your takes. Yours sincerely, Eddie Q, head of Apple TV's streaming department.
Eddie Q. Eddie Q. Sam, why don't we start with you on your take, because you're a huge Brad Pitt guy, you're a huge Top Gun guy, you're a huge Lewis Hamilton guy, you love all the streaming services, you always tell me you can't get enough of every single streaming service, you have them all, you like them all, you watch everything on every single platform.
I love streaming services, yeah.
This is like a match made in heaven for you, like, watch out,
yes
Sammy,
no,
you might be walking down the aisle with this one.
Yes and no, Matt. This is twofold for me. First off, I do love streaming services, but I do not believe in cord cutting at all. I hate cord cutting. So the idea of potentially where I think this is going is Apple TV is going to look to start streaming F1 races live. They're getting into sports streaming. They just signed a deal with MLS. I think this is the first step in a move to maybe get the rights of F1 live streaming. So that's where I think it's going. And like I said, I can't stand cord cutting, so I'm actually not looking forward to that. I like watching the races on ESPN live, no delays. But it's good news for F1 because I think Apple's is becoming a big player in this world, so it's kind of a legitimacy type thing for them. So it's great, and I can't wait to see a movie with Brad Pitt in it. I love Brad Pitt; he's great, hot guy. So looking forward to that. So all in all, it's good news, but I hope that we keep the live ESPN stream because I can't do that 15-second delay stuff with the cord cutting crap.
Yeah, that shit is so goddamn annoying. But I'm kind of in the same boat. Eddie, if you're listening, I'm sure you're going to be listening. Please, for the love of God, give this movie a run in actual movie theaters. Okay, you've got the director of Top Gun Maverick, and I don't know about you guys, but I recently saw Top Gun Maverick. And that movie kicked so much ass.
Hell yeah, brother.
Dude, hell yeah. I was so fired up to see that movie, but that's a story for another day. But the experience of seeing just such a well-made, well-acted movie in a movie theater was second to none. You don't get that on a normal TV. So definitely give it a run in the movie theaters. And, with Joseph Kosinski as a director, I think this movie's going to kick ass.
Here's a question for you. You got to have Tom Cruise in it. You have to, obviously. Who does he play?
Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess he could.
He could play maybe Sergio Paris.
Toto Wolff, maybe.
Yeah, Tom Cruise has experience in racing.
So here's the thing. What about this for an idea? You make a movie on last year's season.
So it's funny you say that.
And Tom Cruise plays Toto Wolff. I think that'd be a great movie, man.
It's funny you say that. I was actually going to ask you guys, what do you think the premise of the movie is? And I don't think it's going to be about last year.
Should be, but it won't be.
And I think so. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack.
George Clooney plays Michael Massey. I just got to put that in there.
Dude.
Oh, I was actually going to say Benicio del Toro should play Michael Massey. That was what I was.
Clooney, man. It's got to be Clooney.
No, Clooney would play Toto Wolff, and Benicio.
Tom Cruise is going to play Toto Wolff.
Tom Cruise is too short to play Toto Wolff.
9 feet tall. There's no way Tom Cruise can play Toto Wolff.
I mean, you can make Tom Cruise look like 6'2".
They have.
That's what they pretty. Have you seen Mission Impossible before?
Tom Cruise should play like Christian Horner. That's the right height for that.
Actually,
Matt Damon should play Christian Horner. No,
Matt Damon should be in prison. Matt Damon should be in prison.
Yeah, we all know that. But so hold on a second. Hold on. So I actually think that the premise should be like an evolution of F. Like, here's the question: is it going to be based on real events, or is it going to be like a fictional movie about Formula One? Like,
I heard that it was going to be
like, is it going to be like Rush, where it's like tracking Niki Lauda and James Hunt, and you get those guys being played? By the way, if that's the case, you need to have those guys come back and play Niki Lauda and James Hunt. Is it going to be a time period piece? Is it going to be like Top Gun, where it's fictional but it's about Formula One, so they try to get it close to that? Or is it going to be about like the evolution of F1? Like, I'm super pumped, but I have no idea where they're going to go with this. And I just don't know where. I think, like, height-wise, I would love to see Tom Cruise play like Fernando Alonso. That'd be hysterical. Just like get him a beard and he has to like talk in an accent. That'd be. I mean, he already played the last of the Mohicans, right? So
and what was Samurai? That was Daniel Day-Lewis in Last of the Mohicans.
Yeah, all right. Daniel Day-Lewis, by the way, definitely needs to be in here in some way, shape, or form.
Daniel Day-Lewis could play Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, who? But honestly, the best question is A, what is it the movie's even going to be about, and then B, who would play Crofty? I think you have to have Crofty play himself.
It depends what time period this movie's in, because if it's
I think you'd put him in any time period. You have him yell, "It's lights out, and away we go!" No matter whether it's 1970 or 2000.
We have an anachronistic commentator on, say it takes place in the 80s. Like, I don't think Crofty was commentating races back then.
Doesn't matter.
It would be Murray Walker for that.
McConaughey playing Schumacher.
He actually looks decently enough like Schumacher, so I could see that happening.
Martin Brundle being played by Peter Dinklage.
No, Martin Brundle being played by the guy from the English guy from Black Panther. I can't remember his name. I think it was like Martin. Oh, I can't remember his name, but that guy would be perfect for Martin Brundle. They're the same height.
Dude,
he's the same height as Peter Dinklage.
Oh, that's that.
Imagine just a movie.
You gotta put the scene with Venus and Serena Williams next.
Oh, God.
Imagine just walking into like the theater halfway through. You accidentally walk into the wrong theater. You're trying to go and see like the next Marvel movie, and you accidentally stumble into Apple TV. Somehow they're both streaming and in theaters, and Apple TV's putting out their F1 movie, and you just see Peter Dinklage doing a grid walk, bumping into like Brittany Griner playing Venus Williams on camera, and it's just like, that would be laughable. I would laugh out loud.
We just did HBO's job for him. We just casted the F1 movie.
Yeah, we did. We just did Showtime's job for them. We casted the movie for them. All right. So the F1 Apple TV movie would be George Clooney or Benicio del Toro playing Michael Massey. You'd have Tom Cruise and Sam's World somehow stretching 4.5 more feet to play Toto Wolff. I think you'd have him playing Fernando Alonso, Matthew McConaughey playing Michael Schumacher, and then Crofty as himself. But guys, what is the movie about? Somebody answer that. What is the movie about?
Dude, apparently there's rumors that it's starring Brad Pitt as a retired Formula One driver coming back onto the grid.
I
That's
love
what-
that.
That's what I
so
heard.
good.
Wow.
That needs to be what it is now. And then you get like cameos of real F1 guys in there.
I think
That's got to be
that's- I
that's
think
got to
that's
be
the
what it
plan.
is. Oh, that's going
That's
to be
awesome.
so
Realistically, I think that's the plan.
We'll be at the midnight premiere for that one, boys.
Dude,
Honestly,
hell yeah,
we
fire
might
it up.
be at the red carpet rollout with the In the Points squad with like Will Buxton, Nico Rosberg, Toto Wolff, the whole gang.
I think that has to be the goal of this podcast. At this time and place, if we can get passes to the red carpet of the premiere of that, it'll be okay. This podcast was a success.
Well, dude, I'll reach back out to Eddie Q and
Yeah,
let
talk
him
to
know.
Eddie Q.
Yeah, we're boys. We're boys.
Eddie Q will say, "Hell yeah, brother, fire it up. Here's 3 passes. We'll get 3 more tickets for guests. It'll be a who's who, a what's what." I think we've had a couple goals on this podcast so far this year. I think this is the new number one. Before it was like making sure we were at Vegas with like all the boys at the hospitality tent, hanging out with Buxton, Crofty, Brundle, Nico Rosberg, and all the likes of them, all the pundits, Julian Palmer. Now, that's kind of like table stakes. We know we're going to be there. Now it's, okay, how do we get rolled out the red carpet with the likes of Brad Pitt, probably Tom Cruise, probably John Krasinski. He's probably going to be in the mix somehow,
I'll
somewhere.
one up you, Matt. What if we're in the movie? Like there's people playing us and we're like the American podcast that's like referenced in the movie.
Dude,
Oh,
fuck.
we're
That's shooting for the
1
moon.
week away from that. That's not that far from remote. In about 2 weeks, that'll become the new goal.
Pitch it to
That
the boys,
F1
Eddie Q.
Yeah, we're so well positioned. We're the only American-based podcast, and we're growing at the speed of Formula One. So
Yeah, we are the fastest
Hell yeah.
growing podcast.
Hell yeah.
fire it up, boys! But
I'm fired up. I'm fired
pumped.
up.
I'm pumped for the movie. I honestly, that was the thing. I did not want it to be about any specific season, because they always do great recaps, and like you've got all these people doing, like you get Drive to Survive, so you kind of have enough about what's happening each season. I loved Rush. The Niki Lauda movie was fantastic, but I wanted something a little bit more outside the box with a ton of cameos. So if that's what they're doing, and Brad Pitt is like, I hope Brad Pitt is playing the retired Nico Rosberg, to be honest with you, because that would be freaking electric.
Playing Nico Rosberg with a Missouri accent.
I
Or
mean,
Oklahoma or wherever Brad Pitt's from. That would be fucking sick, dude.
it would be
How do you
so
sell
sick.
that man as a German?
It would be so sweet. And I think if you had Matthew McConaughey playing Michael Schumacher on top of that too, as like the dad of actually, dude, guys, imagine this. Matthew McConaughey is playing Michael Schumacher, who is the dad of Mick Schumacher in like, he's doing his own cameo. So Matthew McConaughey on screen is the dad of the actual Mick Schumacher at Haas. And he's just like going nuts. I think this would be electric.
Yeah, I'm sold on that.
Totally
Dude,
sold.
One question. If Tom Cruise plays Toto Wolff, how do we incorporate the Tom Cruise sprint that he does in all of his movies?
The one where he's
Is he
running
like-
away from his bad thoughts.
No, dude. Is he like? Is there a racing incident and then Tom Cruise as Toto Wolff has to like sprint to the steward?
Yeah,
area?
maybe there's like a giant crash with Brad Pitt coming back, like a fiery crash, and he runs from the pit wall like onto the track.
Yeah,
Dude,
and they're
I'm so
secretly
down. I'm so
lovers.
on board for
They're
that.
secretly lovers because Apple TV is super based, and like Brad Pitt is playing like he's like a gay version of a Formula One driver.
Sebastian Vettel would
Oh,
be,
yeah,
would
brother,
be all
fire
there.
it
He
up.
thinks that there should be more representation. And
I
you know
agree
what?
with
This
him, man.
podcast
Like,
is totally
I
for
would-
that.
I'm totally supportive of all that. Like let people be who they want to be. You know, like well, why bottle it up? Let's fire it up, boys. Hell yeah, brothers, fire it
Oh,
up.
yeah. Fire it up.
But guys, so that movie can't come out fast enough
It's got to come out at the speed of Formula One.
I'm too excited about it now. I wish we didn't talk about it because I just want to be here now.
I'm just
Yeah,
gonna
I mean,
go
Eddie Q.
after we're done. I'm gonna go watch Rush. That movie kicks so much ass.
After we're done, you got to email Eddie Q and tell him thank you for the question and
Dude, you're
pitch
right.
all of the things we just talked about.
After
right.
we're done, I'm going to put both Top Gun on TV1 and Rush on TV2. And I'm going to put both of them at max sound. And then I'm probably going to watch like what happened last year on my iPad. And I'm just going to get inundated with the most hell yeah, brother, fire it up type of viewing experience of all time.
Dude, that
Guys,
sounds like you're gonna be on the highway to the danger zone if you do all that stuff.
oh, I certainly am. I'm going to be on the highway to the danger zone. Guys, so Apple TV, you get in the points approval for us. Super pumped. Movie's gonna be so based. I can't wait to see it. It's gonna be one of those movies where I'm gonna probably have like 3 or 4 beers while I'm in the movie theater watching it, and it's gonna be awesome because it's just gonna be like you're gonna feel like so jacked up. You're gonna want to have like a nice cold pop and drink during this movie because you're going to have to settle your nerves because you're going to be on the edge of your seat. And
That's the type of movie you do like 3 drinks before, 3 during, and then like 3 or 4 after to decompress and like debrief on the whole thing.
And the 3 of us will be there.
Yeah.
Guys, speaking of drinks, speaking of beers, I got to ask, we spend all of our time talking about the current grid and what they do as far as like driving goes. All right. But with all this preamble, with all this talk of going to a film premiere, getting shit-faced before, during, and after, I got to ask, if you guys could pick like three guys in the grid to get a beer with, who would they be?
Good question.
Wow. So we're going to have to, I love this question. But I think we got to go follow some of our predecessor podcasts and go snake draft on it. I don't think we can go right off the bat 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
I don't think we should be allowed to repeat it.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I like that.
Snake draft the current driver grid from top to bottom, and
just drivers, no principals.
Just drivers.
No principals. Yeah, just drivers.
Yeah, right.
Wait, who's going to get to go first?
Matt, how about you? You're the Red Bull guy. You're in first place this season.
All right, that's fair enough. That's a fair enough point. Yeah, I'll go first, and then Stefano ranks Ferrari. He'll go second, and your Mercedes, you go third.
Fine.
Yeah. All right. All right. Hold on. Wow, this is an interesting one. There's a lot of interesting guys on the grid. Now, wait, hold on. Let me clarify this, Stefano. Is this like we're just gonna like sit at a bar and have like 8 beers and shoot the shit, or is this like you're going to go out after like a race weekend and like you might find your way into like some crazy stuff and then like 4 a.m. you're like heading home.
It's like a night out. You don't know what's going to happen.
Dude, it's like both. It's honestly both. You could just be going to the bar for a casual chat and a beer with your best bud on the grid, and it could lead to like a week-long bender. So, you got to pick wisely.
Oh man, this is a tough question. All right, I think I've got the answer that I've got right now. But boy, this is really. I think I gotta kick it off with Lando Norris. I think Lando gets into some like crazy stuff. Like I think like there's some videos of him after like Miami. Like I feel like he's like young. He loves to like have like hit the party scene. I think like Lando, you could like he's like a wild card. Like you could go and like he'd be funny and like kind of like you could yuck it up with him. But then like push comes to shove, you could be like in some models party, like hanging out at like 3 a.m. Like I think Lando's a total wild card, and I think like having a beer with him like would be baseline super fun, but I think he could get into like some deep shenanigans. So I think I would pick
he
Lando.
Definitely has like the face of a cherub, but you can definitely tell like that face is hiding an animal behind it.
Oh yeah, big time. So I think my first one I pick is like Lando Norris.
Okay.
Stefano, go ahead.
Dude, easy for me. Number 1, Daniel Ricciardo.
Wow. Talk to us about that one,
dude. I'm picturing just going after the race to the local tavern with Danny Rick. First things first, clink a couple of beers together. As the night goes on, we're chopping it up, shooting the shit. Next thing you know, we're down in shots, doing shoeies.
That sounds disgusting.
I'm out on that.
That is like you want to do a shoey? You want to do a shoey with Danny Ricciardo for him finishing 12th?
This has no bearing on performances on the grid.
That's where you're wrong, Stefano.
No, this is all a test of personalities, and Daniel Ricciardo definitely has the type of personality that I'd want to like hang out with and enjoy myself with.
Yeah, maybe, but like All right, all right.
All right. Sam,
Well,
I'd like to hear.
yeah,
I'd like to hear who you
So
pick over Daniel
I get
Ricciardo.
two. I get
Yeah,
two.
you get two
I
picks. You get two picks.
So first one. I mean, this is an obvious one. I can't believe he got all the way to 3, but Yuki Tsunoda.
See,
That's
I thought you were
pretty
gonna
obvious
slip.
to me. Just do like a few sake bombs and just like the works, and probably go to like a dance club, like a light show. Like I picture a great time with him and like crazy time, ravish. So the Yuki is an easy one for me. Number 2 would be Checo Perez.
Yeah, see,
I could just see like tequila shots with him and good time out. We saw he, can get in some trouble. We saw, the pictures from Monaco. He was a bad boy, but hanging out with a bad boy is fun sometimes. So Yuki and Checo to me are 2 easy ones. I know I'm going to have a great time with both of them. Might get in a little bit of trouble, but it'll be worth it. It'll be a great time.
see, I love both those picks. I honestly thought that those guys were going to slip a little bit later. Like, I thought you were going to come out of the gate and be like Lewis Hamilton, and I think you want to say Toto because that's why you asked drivers.
It was. You're right.
Yeah,
I wanted to go with Toto.
I think Lewis Hamilton would be the last person I want to get a beer with.
I mean, well, I'll put it this way. There's one thing I know. It's that he will 100% be in Sam's trio of getting drinks with at the end of this snake draft. I looked at the list, and Yuki was 100% somebody I thought I could get like the 3rd pick. I thought Yuki was like a shoe-in for me because you guys are just going to go through the field and pick a bunch of other people. All right, I love those, Sam. I think you're right. I think Checo would like go. He would have the best tequila for you too. Like you'd be doing like the smoothest tequila.
Definitely.
Probably get caught up in some like cartel stuff or something like that. Yuki is a hilarious time. Imagine the 2 of those guys together. That'd be like absolutely epic. All right, Stefano, you're up.
How many am I doing? Just 1 or 2?
1. Yeah, we go.
All right, Pierre Gasly. Easy.
That's a good one. Talk us through that.
Dude, you just know that Pierre Gasly is like into some like crazy shit. Like that guy definitely hangs out with exclusively supermodels and Yuki Tsunoda. So I mean,
true.
I'd be hanging out with Sam too if that was the case.
Yeah.
So it would just be the 4 of us.
We would be going out together. That's a good crew, man.
That is
That would be a sick crew. That would be a string quartet of just like of playboys just looking to tear it up.
Crew. Yeah. Great crew.
Helmut Marko is worried that Yuki and Pierre Gasly are getting a little bit too close to one another this year, so keep your eyes out for that one. I'm up again. Oh boy, man! You guys took a lot of the good ones that I thought I was going to get later on in this fight. To be honest with you, man, I hate where my crew is going. I wish I didn't go first. Now that I think about it, I think that the next one that I would pick, it's got to be for me Fernando Alonso. I think that he's kind of the other version of like Checo Perez. I think he is somebody who can definitely I'll put it this way, he probably can drink more than anyone I know. He just seems like that type of guy that like can drink everyone under the table. He's going to last the night. He's kind of that old wily vet who's been around the block, and he's going to he knows all the right spots, the right places, where to go, what to drink, who to meet, like huge network, all that stuff. I just think he would be super fun to go out with, and he would just show you a good time. Let's see. I got another pick, right? Boy, man, this is so freaking hard. I'm right now in between a couple. All right. This one's a tactical one. This one's going to be fun. I think to round out my crew, I think I would pick Lance Stroll because I know Lando Norris would just be trolling Lance Stroll the whole time, and it would just be like a punching bag. We could be like, it would just be about spinning out and like, oh, you crashed, or like, oh, like you just know, like Norris and Fernando Alonso would be trolling Lance Stroll the whole time. So like, I'd put him in my crew. I wouldn't want to have a beer with him, but I would want him in that trio, so that way he could just be like the punching bag and the butt end of all the jokes all night long.
You need a strong third person because the Lando Stroll crew right now is one that my crew's probably like beating up at the bar.
Probably right, to be honest with you. I don't like my crew at all. I mean, I had Fernando Alonso as my third.
Dude, honestly, out of everyone in your crew including you, I would hang out with Fernando Alonso because you picked, dude, Lance Stroll as your third. You'd have to bring Lawrence Stroll with you because he doesn't do anything without his dad.
Yeah,
So
but
you have
how
a
sick would
chaperone
that
with
be?
you all
Imagine,
None of those guys like mesh together. That's just like
Imagine-
an odd crew.
imagine like Lawrence Stroll just picking up the tab for all of our shit too. Like like we'd walk away from that with like PJs for all of us. We'd walk out of that
Yeah,
night and
you
just be
guys-
like
yeah.
private jet in my driveway the next day.
None of this sounds like fun.
No,
Yeah, I don't
None
know,
of this
man.
sounds like fun.
Alonso.
The only one
and-
that I want to hang out with, is Fernando Alonso, and only at this stage of his career. If I was going to hang out with like prime 06 Fernando Alonso, I'd say no because he'd be way too intense.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell
All
you.
right.
I think having Lando Norris trolling Lance Stroll, I feel like he's like I mean, look, you guys have you watched how Lando like trolled Danny Ricciardo last year and how he like trolls the media every single weekend? Like it would just be
Have
hysterical
you seen
watching
Lance
him.
Stroll?
Huh?
Have you seen Lance Stroll? Like just in
Yes,
general?
that's why I think it would be so funny because Lando Norris would just be trolling. He'd be strolling him the whole time.
All right,
I
Stefano.
hate you so
Stefano,
much.
let's hear your third.
Sebastian Vettel, obviously,
Eh.
Good pick.
because
didn't
I
do
know that
anything,
I know that we're gonna get smashed off of so many steins full of beer, and if things get out of hand and God forbid we get robbed at the end of the night, I know Sebastian Vettel's got my back. He's gonna jump on his electric scooter and chase down the fucking reprobates that just robbed us.
Dude, Sebastian Vettel would be lecturing you about climate change the entire night.
The only thing, yeah, that's
He
fine
would just be
because
telling you about how Miami's going to be underwater in 3 years.
that's fine. I'd be too drunk to even pay attention.
All right.
So who's your crew, Stefano?
It's Daniel Ricciardo, Pierre Gasly, and Sebastian Vettel.
That's a solid crew.
Yeah, like that's a solid crew. Like at least those guys kind of mesh.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
solid crew. All right, Sam. who's your last one?
Unlike Matt's crew, that doesn't make any sense. I think Nicholas Latifi must have lost his invitation in the mail. All right, so to round out my crew, I'm gonna text Chuck Leclerc to come chill with the boys.
Wow, no
Uh,
Lewis.
Nah, we don't want to hang out with Lewis. Not in a night like that. Chuck Leclerc, I feel like he's good times, good vibes. Just kind of one of the boys. You'll have a good time with them. Yeah, it's a pretty simple one for me, and I feel like my crew now all meshes. Chuck, Yuki, and Checo, the boys.
Nah,
Chuck, Yuki, and
not having it.
That's a
Not
that's a
having it.
motley crew to say the least, dude. Honestly,
I'd rather have
Very
Carlos
diverse
Sainz.
crew.
I'd rather have Carlos
Leclerc
Sainz.
doesn't seem like he has
Caucasian,
fun.
Asian, Mexican,
Chuck Leclerc
And
doesn't seem
somebody
like he'd
from-
have any
and rich
fun.
guy from
and,
Monaco?
and the Eastern European guy
I mean,
or Northern. I don't even know where that country
From
is.
Monaco. That's not Eastern or Northern Europe.
does Leclerc even like do anything? Does he have fun?
I saw a
doubt
picture of him
it.
smoking, like doing like the hand up to the mouth, like he was smoking weed once. So
Oh,
that seems
sweet.
pretty cool. That
dude.
seems
Yeah,
pretty cool.
I remember doing
That
that
seems
when I
pretty
was
cool.
17. I mean,
Do you?
like the motion, yeah. Like anyone can do the motion. I don't know. I feel like Yuki is a hilarious one. I honestly, you threw me off. I wanted to pick Yuki was going to be my third. I thought he was a shoe-in for my third, and that would have been awesome to have.
Sam, with Yuki, you are gonna go to every Japanese karaoke bar and sing just
Definitely.
like the most like
Yeah.
hilarious versions of like 1980s songs.
Yeah, so like
It'll be
Sweet
great.
Caroline and like,
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you mean,
Add to the
dude?
bone.
He can't speak proper English. He's not. You think Yuki's going to go do karaoke?
Dude,
yeah, I do.
do you know how popular karaoke is in Japan? It doesn't
No,
matter
it
if you
is.
can
It's-
speak English or not.
It's impressively like popular now, like over in Asia. Like there's private rooms. It's like a whole ordeal. I know that is a mega thing. It just
Yeah.
actually would be hysterical because Yuki on Team Radio is electric. To listen to Yuki on karaoke would be like 1,000 times more electric.
Sam, it'd be sick because Pierre and Yuki would text each other to link up, and our respective crews would link up, and we'd just leave Chuck Leclerc behind because he doesn't have fun.
Why don't you think Chuck Leclerc is fun? I don't get that.
Dude, because he has Carlos Sainz on his team, who's a
Yeah.
smooth operator. I'd just
Chuck
rather
Leclerc-
have him in my crew
Just-
than Chuck.
him
Like,
him and Max feel like they're like similar and like they don't really.
No.
Oh
Max is a stiff. Max is a stiff.
No,
That's a guy you
no,
don't
no,
want to
no.
go.
A stiff.
That's a guy you don't want to go out with.
Well, you'll be
sure.
going out. He'll be getting texted into your crew, hanging out
Him
with
and
Pierre
Chuck
Gasly as
Leclerc
much as he
are
is.
not alike at all. Chuck's way more smooth than Max.
Pierre Gasly will
Yeah,
be
but at the
hitting up
same
Max
time,
Verstappen.
Chuck is a stuffed up, stuffy rich kid from Monaco. I don't want to hang out with him.
I don't want to hang out with him either. And here's the thing.
Okay, you picked Lance Stroll, Matt.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
dude,
said
you
it, but
don't-
that
you
was
can't-
like an
you can't say
ironic
anything.
one for Lando Norris to troll him all night. I was very clear about that.
You're such a hipster, Matt, picking one out of irony.
This entire thing transformed from who do you want to have a beer with to like assembling your optimal crew. Like if it was assembling your optimal crew, I would have done this thing a whole lot differently. Like I started off being like, I'd love to have a beer with Lando Norris, and you guys were like, oh, I'm trying to develop like the best crew that meshes together. I don't know where the evolution of this transpired.
It was when you made it a snake draft, I think.
That is probably true. When I made a snake draft, I inadvertently changed the rules, and I should have known better because it would have ended up being a competition of who had assembled the best crew for an evening out. But I mean, guys, this was fun. This was a good little segment on a short week where like there hasn't been a whole lot of news. For all of our listeners, you can certainly be expecting another one of these with a broader historical F1 racer driver pool, probably team principals in the mix. So like during the summer break, we'll definitely bring this segment back and do like another snake draft of who to have. And this time we'll set the rules a little bit better. Like who do you ever want to have a beer with doesn't transform into like who's your optimal crew to go hit a night out in the town with that like somehow Sam had 2 picks and he assembled the best crew. Like go figure. But guys,
Dude, every time you say assemble your crew, I keep thinking of Dave Chappelle
Avengers,
as
right?
Prince saying assemble your crew, and then
Yeah,
they just
well,
go play basketball.
it's about time you picked up on it because that's exactly what I was referencing. So
Dude, hell
kudos
yeah.
to you there,
Fire it up.
Stefano. So guys,
Also, I just want to say to all of our listeners, if you have anyone that you'd like to go get a beer with, we'd love to hear from you. You know, this is definitely an interactive medium. Email us.
Best
Give us
crew
a-
gets
leave us a
read on
voicemail.
next episode.
yeah,
that
best
again?
crew gets read on next episode.
The best crew that's submitted gets read on next episode.
Hell yeah, fire it up.
Absolutely, and we'll ask them when they come on. They'll get listened in, and we'll add them onto the podcast, and they'll do a snake draft of them of which top 3 in the points host they'd like to have a beer with. So they can only pick 3 of the in the points hosts. And they'll do a snake draft to say who their crew would be if they would go out and have a beer with us. I'm shocked you guys are like all over me about Lance Stroll. Like you don't think that he would absolutely live it up in Canada. He's just a rich guy that will just go and spend a bunch of money, probably buy a bunch of tables at like 9 different clubs on
I
daddy's
don't
dime.
think he's going out and having a good time. I think
I think that's exactly what a paid driver does. They have nothing else to worry about. Who cares? They're just blowing daddy's money. And you think he's going to know all the like hot spots, especially in Canada. Speaking of Canada, guys, we got to turn our attention to Canada this week. It's a huge race for a lot of different teams. A lot can happen. First time back since 2019. It's going to be electric. Stefano, give us your track preview. Would love hearing that. The newest segment, our favorite new segment. Stefano's giving a track preview heading into race weekend. Stefano, kick us off, man.
Hell yeah, fire it up. We go to the city of saints, the city of festivals, Sin City. After a long 3-year wait, Montreal once again becomes the city of speed as Formula One circus crosses the Atlantic to return to this wonderful old city north of the border. Moving on from a frankly routine race in Baku, following Ferrari's exploding left, right, and center, the dynamic duo of Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez will look to carry their momentum forward at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, a 4.3 kilometer, 14 turn peach of a track that features fast sweepers, quick chicanes, a tight hairpin leading to a long straight, culminating in a chicane at the aptly named Wall of Champions. Can Lewis Hamilton, winner of the last Grand Prix held in Montreal in 2019, reassume the throne here? Can the prancing horses gallop away from their competition this week, or will the bulls be on parade once again? Get your poutine and maple syrup ready because this is the Canadian Grand Prix.
Wow, hell of an intro. Fire that one up. Fire it freaking up, dude. Canada. Sam, you love this track. F1 video game. You raced this before I got to the track, and you were a pig in mud on this thing. You must be so pumped to see it actually come to life, and in first time in like 3 years too.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Love this track. I feel like I'm kind of like alone in that. I feel like everyone else is kind of like whatever. It kind of flies under the radar. I feel like I'm a big fan of it. It's going to be an interesting race. Ferrari backs up against the wall. I'm excited for it. I find it a little ironic that the two like ambassadors of this track are like the two worst drivers in Formula One. That's a little bit of a shame. It's kind of like made it into kind of like a joke. So that's too bad. But other than that, it's going to be a fun weekend. I think a lot of signs are pointing towards another Red Bull win. Maybe some issues for Ferrari in trying to fix those reliability problems that they had. So I'm very interested to see what happens this weekend.
Yeah, it's funny because the two guys promoting it, it's so bizarre because they don't really like mesh with the sport, let alone Canada itself. I mean, they're two pretty big outliers. Sucks that they're the spokesperson. That's probably why a lot of people don't really care about it, right? They're just like, whatever. Two DRS zones though, but like the second one is a little interesting because it goes into a chicane right around 13, 14, but then the DRS continues on into turn 1. So it's like an interesting little speed trap with two DRS zones. It's almost like three DRS zones, though, coming out of that hairpin 10 and 11, where we saw Lewis went a little bit wide back in 2019 in his fight to catch Sebastian Vettel. The circuit dates back to 1978, 70 laps. It's going to be a long one. It's going to be very similar to like Baku, where we watched a lot of laps on track. More like Monaco, where we saw a lot of laps on track, not like Baku, where we saw a lot less. All of them, though, for our new listeners, every single track is supposed to have right around the same race distance in terms of cumulative race distance of about 300 kilometers. So each track is different sizes. That means they do different laps. But at the end of the day, they race the same distance. So all these cars are going to go for about 300 kilometers. This one's a lot of fun. Like, I'm glad this is back on circuit. It's crazy to me, though, that in a back-to-back weekend, they're going from Baku to Canada. And then they do like from Silverstone to Austria. Like they couldn't be going further from 2 points in the world than they are to this time.
I think I saw it was a 13 and a half hour flight.
Yeah, it was crazy. I remember going to bed after watching Baku, and like Lando Norris posted a story being like, all right, I'm about to get on my flight. And then like the next day at like 4 p.m., it was like a news story. It was like just landed. And I was like, huh? But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty important race for Ferrari, really. Like, I mean, it's coming off of two reliability issues that are seemingly unrelated at Baku. It's very important that they collect some points.
It's probably their most important so far.
I totally agree.
They need a statement race right now. They need to prove that they're not just like, the strategists aren't going to just be a bunch of chickens running around with their heads cut off following, the horror show of reliability from Baku. So they definitely need cool heads in the pit lane on the strategy side. And Chuck and Carlos definitely need to drive their hearts out.
Stefano, are you worried about Chuck having to take a grid penalty for some new engine parts?
Is he going to have to?
It sounds like there's a good chance he might.
For this race this early in the season?
Yes.
Oh, that seems so crazy.
Yeah, apparently the damage was a lot worse than they originally thought from last weekend.
That's honestly, I'm not worried insofar as like his overall race. If he starts from the back of the grid, I think he's still going to be able to climb up to challenge for a podium. But if he starts from the back of the grid, there's no way he's going to win.
Back of the grid would be crazy.
No, I heard 10 place penalty.
A 10 place penalty is basically him starting 11th because he'll be sitting on pole. But I mean, this weekend's really could be very crazy. I was thinking about it. Sam, I didn't realize he was going to take a grid penalty, but if he had to take a 10 place grid penalty and for somehow Red Bull had reliability issues, we could be seeing Mercedes return to first place. P1.
That's what they need. That is exactly what they need to happen. What they need is both cars out and them 1-2 finish. Because if that happens, then it's kind of game on.
If that happens,
definitely, it swings the constructors especially into a whole new sort of thing. Because I think at that point, Mercedes will probably overtake Ferrari.
Depends on where Ferrari would end up.
Standings.
If both Ferraris DNF'd and Mercedes went 1-2 with fastest lap, they would have 205 points to Ferrari's 199. So it would really depend on what Carlos Sainz does, and where Charles Leclerc has to start and how much he can make up in the field. If he starts 11th, I think he's easily going to be challenging the Mercedes for probably the race win if he had to start from 11th, assuming reliability. He's going to make mincemeat out of that field, and probably by like lap 6, he's easily going to be in P3. I mean, again, if that's
assuming,
the polls,
assuming Fernando Alonso doesn't hold everybody up like he's been doing the past couple races.
Yeah, Alex Albon was not very happy about that one bit. But you're right, Sam. This track, here's the big problem for Mercedes. This track has not been resurfaced in a long time, and it's not super smooth. It's a very bumpy track from what I've heard. So Mercedes porpoising, I don't think is going to be nearly as bad as Baku, which if you guys watch some of the replays, there was like Lewis Hamilton's porpoising was so bad, he almost crashed his car into turn 17 because he couldn't control it. That's how bad it was. We'll get to that in a second, but it's super uneven. I think I would expect their car to perform similar to how it performed in Spain. And I think that's what I'm expecting coming into this week, is that Mercedes will perform like they did in Spain, and they might have some really good race pace, and maybe they get some good setup related performance out of the car. And my question to you, Sam, does Lewis Hamilton finish ahead of George Russell this weekend?
It's hard for me to sit here and with a straight face and say yes. I mean, he just hasn't shown anything to prove that he's in a position to do that. So I'm going to say no. I think Russell finishes ahead of him again. But I think Hamilton is obviously very motivated to get a finish ahead of his teammate. So it wouldn't shock me, but I just don't think he's in the position yet. We haven't really seen much promise from him, and he's been like distant. I mean, I know he's finished right behind him, but it wasn't like he was on his tail at all at Baku. So no, I don't think he's going to.
Yeah, I think he is. I think something's going to like dig deep, and I think that they're going to fix something on the car. I actually think I just have this like weird gut feeling that Mercedes is going to be super competitive this weekend. And I think it's going to be awesome for the sport. And if Ferraris take a grid penalty and it's Red Bull and Mercedes battling again, that's going to be epic. Because even if Leclerc gets on pole, if let's just say Leclerc gets on pole, Max or Checo P2, P3, Sainz P4, and then the Mercedes, Charles goes back down. You got Bulls starting on the front row. Now into turn 1, you got a Lewis Hamilton or a George Russell challenging the Red Bulls, which would be super cool to see again. I mean, last year I held my breath for a lot of those lap 1, turn 1 racing moves between both of them. Who was on pole? Max was on pole. Lewis gets a better start. He's into turn 1 ahead. But I'm kind of craving that again. I'm craving a Max Lewis battle again, even if it's just for a lap or two. And then it just, you need to see it. And I mean, how about Christian Horner saying if it was his drivers, he'd be hamming up the porpoising and the unsafe conditions and all that stuff.
Just so sick of that guy.
Yeah, but he said it. You said it. You agreed with him.
Yeah, I know, but shut up. Just shut up. He's just loving it because they're not having any porpoising issues. So it's just shut up. I can't stand the guy.
Yeah. All right. It said differently. If he was the Mercedes team principal and you liked the guy, you'd be like, yeah, he's funny.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Agree to disagree. Ferrari, though, my question for one of you, I don't care who answers. Carlos Sainz, what type of weekend does he have? Start with Sam. Sam, you always say Carlos Sainz. You got to tell the folks.
I think we're in for a strong Carlos Sainz weekend. I have this feeling, and that's kind of the take that I've got cooking in the oven right now at about 350. It's preheating. I think we have a big weekend from Carlos. I'm leaning towards this thought that Leclerc is going to take a penalty and get it over with. And I think Sainz is going to feel like he's the guy this weekend, and knowing the team is relying on him. And I'm starting to think that we see a big Carlos Sainz weekend this weekend.
Does Carlos Sainz win a race this year?
Yes.
Let's wait until the predictions at the end of the show to get to that.
I like that. Stefano, what do you think is going to happen with all the customer engine teams? We saw it last weekend. Alfa Romeo, Haas, these midfield teams that are relying on these Ferrari power units, these Ferrari engines. What type of weekend do you think that those guys come back with? Do you think Haas, Mick Schumacher, Kevin Magnussen kind of come back into the form that we thought that they had starting in Bahrain? Do you think they're slow playing their development? Like Mick has had just an abysmal season.
Honestly, based on the past few races results alone, I don't think Haas is in with a shout at all this weekend. Following Mick's crash in Monaco, the horror crash, and then just his no-show in Baku. What's he going to do in Montreal? Not much. And then K-Mag hasn't really shown a whole lot either. I don't see either of them finishing anywhere near a points finish. For the Alfa Romeos, I think Zhou Guanyu showed glimpses of form in Baku before his retirement, so he could be in with a shout. And I think Valtteri's definitely, probably there for like a middle of the top 10 finish, between P5 and P10, somewhere in there. He knows the track pretty well. So I think for customer engines, I think Alfa Romeo has a better shot at like a successful race weekend this weekend in Montreal.
Yeah, and it's going to definitely favor those cars that bring a low downforce package to the circuits. This is definitely favoring high speed cars. This does not require a whole lot of downforce required to kind of nail sector 2 and the twisty bits as much as it does in some European circuits. So it feels like we're back to more of like a similar to Australia, Miami type of circuit, which has historically, or not even Australia as much, but like a little bit of like a Jeddah. It just seems like, to Sam, your point earlier, the pendulum on this particular race weekend is swinging a little bit right now preliminarily into Red Bull's favor just because of the types of packages that they bring. But we saw so many times Ferrari, is going to be super competitive if they take away reliability. I think we're going to get another Red Bull Ferrari battle, but I hope we get to see some other ones back up in the mix. And here's the thing too, if Chuck Leclerc has to take a grid penalty, he's just going to be the first of so many of these top drivers that will have to do that this year. It is inevitable. Max Verstappen will probably take like 2 grid penalties this entire year because of reliability from Bahrain.
So that's why I think we see him take it this weekend. He's just like, okay, let's get it over with. Because I think this is going to become like a common thing. So what's the point? What's the point?
Yeah, with so many races on the calendar, it's almost like if they're going to get a penalty, they want to get it over with as soon as possible.
Yeah, exactly. And this track especially, it just feels like Matt just said, it just feels like it sets up well the Red Bull. So let's get it over with now when we're already probably going to be fighting an uphill battle.
Yeah, do damage limitation. Try and make your way through the field, finish in the top 5. If you get on the podium, great. But so here's the interesting thing, and I'm sure we'll get into the predictions. If he takes a grid penalty, there's probably, in barring reliability issues, there's probably zero chance that he finishes ahead of Carlos Sainz. Because assuming they're in the both similar car, and Carlos Sainz, I would assume, is going to start in the top 5, he probably won't catch his own teammate. So like if Red Bull and all those cars don't have any reliability issues and like there's no weird stuff that happens on track, I still think that like Chuck will probably best do 6th, 5th, maybe 4th, depending on how quick the Mercedes is. So maybe it's a good segue into like what we think is going to happen in our predictions for this weekend. But it could, if you take a grid penalty, lend itself where the number 2 driver Ferrari could maybe be finishing ahead of his teammate, and if ahead of the Bulls, maybe, Sam, your season-long quote may finally come to fruition. So maybe we'll just go right into predictions, and we'll start with you, Stefano. Stefano, give us your bold predictions for the race weekend. Let's do, for all of our listeners new to the segment, we do our predictions pre-practice, only entire podcast, only pundits in the entire industry that does it pre-practice. Once you do it in practice, it's super easy to kind of get a pulse for where everything's going to shake out on track. We do it midweek before anybody else can get to it. We do poll P1 through P3. However, this week we're switching it up a little bit. We're going poll and top 5 because the Red Bull and Ferrari teams have been so freaking good that it just becomes us swapping in who we think is going to win that weekend versus who's not. And last weekend, me and Stefano had Checo and Max 1 and 2, and that was like pretty straightforward. I think the weekend before that, like all you guys had Charles on pole. I mean, Charles been on pole like every single time. So like picking the pole winner is basically just like pick Charles and you're fine. And then it just becomes down to like a flip of a coin of who picked the right team. So now we're going to go top 5 drivers. I think that makes it a little bit more interesting because we're laying a little bit more on the line. A lot more can happen in 4th and 5th. But still going to do pole and podium. Stefano, let's start with you. Who do you have on pole, by the way? Stefano, he's the only one that does 3 positions on pole. You might as well just give us who's on the first 2 rows at this point, Stefano. So go P1 through P4 on pole.
All right. Fire it up, man. P1, I have Max Verstappen. I think he's going to have a great qualifying session. I think he wants to prove that he not only has the pace for the race, but he also wants to get some pole positions in as well. I think Chuck overtook him in Baku for most poles. Or I think he surpassed his number of poles. So I think he wants to wrench that back from Chuck. I may be wrong on that.
You think Chuck Leclerc has more poles in Formula One than Max Verstappen?
I think I remember
there was like 3 seasons
like
where like Charles Leclerc didn't even like sniff the front 2 rows.
I'm saying no way on that.
Yeah, that can't be right.
Might not be. I remember
Maybe
hearing a stat like that.
Maybe consecutive poles, but there's no way. I mean, Max had like 13 last year.
Yeah, I don't know. It was early in the morning when I heard it. I might be wrong. I was a little groggy.
Yeah, we'll
either way, I'm still going with Max. I think Chuck has a little bit of a hiccup in quali. And he ends up P2, Carlos Sainz P3. And then rounding it out, I think that there's going to be no lockout for the front 2 grid spots for Red Bull and Ferrari. So I think George Russell is going to be P4.
What happens to Checo?
I think he flubs it, dude. Honestly, I think Checo's form runs out in Montreal altogether. So I think he flubs qualifying. I think George Russell takes advantage, gives us a storming lap in qualifying for a commanding P4 position.
Hey, just a fact check. Stefano was right. Charles Leclerc has passed Max Verstappen with 15 poles, and Max has 14 career poles. So
that is a shocking stat.
Shocker.
Shocking.
Absolutely shocking to see that currently Charles Leclerc has more pole positions than of his entire career than Max Verstappen by a whole 1. But that is pretty crazy. So hats off to Stefano.
You wouldn't have thought. But don't cut that whole deliberation segment out.
No, we weren't going to. It was just a thing we're going to say. We're not going to cut that either. So all right.
Oh, yeah, fire it up.
So sorry. And who's your race predictions? Did I miss that looking up this thing?
Do you want to do race predictions or do you want to do quali first and then all 3 of us go through the race?
You're the only one who does the first 4 in quali. So we all just give who's going to be on pole, but you started giving the top 3. So I said, just give us the front 2 rows. So why don't you just go right into the race?
All right. Weirdly, and I had to deliberate in my own head about this for a little while. But I think Carlos Sainz is your race winner in Montreal.
Did you just jack Sam's take?
I might have. But I think Carlos Sainz takes his first win of the season in Montreal. And I think George Russell has what it takes to get to P2. And I think Max rounds out the podium. Assuming that Leclerc has to take a grid penalty, I think he'll slot in nicely for 4th place. And I think Sergio Perez recovers from a qualifying that he would rather forget to round out the top 5.
Wow. I mean, I think I'm just a little bit more in shock that as a as a host, I was teasing a prediction from Sam, and instead I inadvertently let Stefano jack that take.
Should have started with me.
I should have started with you. I mean, Stefano, that's a crazy take that you have. I'm just going to go right to Sam. I don't have much to say right there. Sam, why don't you give us predictions for the weekend?
Yeah, Stefano certainly jacked that. So yeah, I'm going to go with Checo Perez on pole. I think he's been super sharp in qualifying. He's shown that he's got a little bit more pace than Max at times. So I think we see Checo on pole. And then for the race win, I agree with Stefano. I think that Carlos Sainz is going to get his win, and Carlos Sainz is going to win a race this year. So we're both on the same page with that one. I think what's going to happen is Leclerc is going to have to take his grid penalty. He's going to have a good race. I have him finishing. I went back and forth about fourth or fifth. I think he'll be fighting for fourth, but end up fifth. And I think he ends up behind George Russell in fourth, and then third Checo, Max 2. So I think we see a Sainz, Max, Checo podium.
I like that. Yeah, I mean, you've been saying it all year that you think Carlos Sainz is going to win a race this year, and if your contacts, if your sources are correct, and Charles Leclerc has to take a grid penalty, we were kind of teasing that the whole episode. It's lending itself to Carlos Sainz being the number one driver of Ferrari this weekend in terms of positions because of that grid penalty. And most likely, I would not expect. I'll put it this way. If Charles Leclerc has to take a 10-place grid penalty and he sits on pole and he starts 11th and he beats his own teammate, Carlos Sainz needs to retire. That's my take.
I'd agree with that.
In the same Ferrari, Carlos Sainz losing to his own teammate, if his teammate takes a 10-place grid penalty, like, you should hang him up. Like, there's zero excuse for you as Carlos Sainz if you're starting like third, your teammate starting 11th in the same car, and you lose to them. Now, not getting hit or anything, like, that's inexcusable. That's like pretty bad. But
yeah, no, you're 100% right there. But I think this podcast, the majority of this podcast, has faith in the smooth operator that is Carlos Sainz.
I don't.
Big weekend for Carlos.
I don't have faith in Carlos Sainz. I think something's up with that guy. And here's the other thing. He has not had a car that's instilled more confidence after driver errors. So yes, while Australia was his fault and Imola, he got tagged by Danny Ricciardo, the events of Baku, like things like that just start to, in my opinion, deteriorate confidence in the driver. And I'm not saying it's all like, oh, he's not a good driver, he can't do anything anymore. I just think collectively, all these DNFs, all these collisions that aren't his fault, the hydraulic issue, all of these things start to just put more and more and more pressure on him in the next race. And then when that doesn't go his way, it happens in the next race and then in the next race. So that's the reason why I'm losing faith in Carlos Sainz, not in his ability, just in the fact that the amount of pressure and mounting on his shoulders, especially after a Ferrari double DNF, it's just mounting. And I just don't know if he's the type that can internalize that pressure and turn it into diamonds, or if he's going to fold. And we're going to learn a lot about Carlos Sainz the rest of the season, because there should be nobody on the grid right now that has less confidence than him out of his own control. And we'll see what he's made of. So yeah, I like your guys' predictions. I think it's going to come down to whether or not Ferrari can set up the car and challenge Red Bull at this track. Suits Red Bull. Maybe Red Bull will have some reliability, but it's going to be interesting to see Carlos Sainz if Chuck Leclerc is taking a penalty and what he's going to do on track. So for my pole prediction, I think it's got to be a Ferrari. I think it's going to be Chuck Leclerc. That car is so fast in a one-lap setting that it's like almost impossible to say that it's not going to be the Ferrari sitting on pole this weekend. They've done it everywhere. They have, I think, 6 this year out of 8 races, and it's nuts. It's crazy what they can do on track in that one lap, and their race pace is very good too, but this one lap is insane. And I think it's going to be Chuck. I'll go full first 2 rows. I think it's going to be Chuck. I think it's going to be Checo. I think it's going to be Max. I think it's going to be Sainz. I think Checo's having an unbelievable year for qualifying. And the reason why I say that is because I'm actually starting to get the sense that Max doesn't really care as much about qualifying as he did last year. I think I said that in the last episode. He can win from third, and he's won from fourth, and so it's like I think he's putting less emphasis on how important it is to be on pole. And yeah, he wants to prove it and do it, but I think right now, if you like gave him truth serum, what does he care about more, being on pole or winning the race? He's going to say winning the race. So I think that the race pace is pretty impressive there. For the race, I think we're going to get another Red Bull 1-2. And I know that's such a homer take, but they just look so strong. This track favors them. Both drivers are driving so confidently. They're meshing. The team is working really well. They've got a ton of momentum. Ferrari, they're a little bit back on the back foot. They have to perform, a little bit more pressure in the team. The Red Bull can just race loosely, like in terms of like everyone can kind of let their hair down a little bit and they don't have to have the pressure, versus like this time last year, they were in Ferrari shoes. So that's why I think you're just going to see, and the track kind of suits them. So barring reliability, I think you get a Red Bull 1-2. I think you get Lewis Hamilton on P3. I think finishes ahead of his teammate this weekend, George Russell. I think they're going to find something in the car. He's going to want to perform. He's going to do his best. And I think he's going to perform on track. I think you see Carlos Sainz P4. And I think you probably see, this one's so tough. I think and this is all assuming Chuck Leclerc is taking a grid penalty. Otherwise, I think you get him closer up into like second or third. And then I think you see Chuck Leclerc P5 and then George Russell P6. And I think it's the first weekend you see George Russell not finish in the top 5. That's my prediction.
Matt, you said a Red Bull 1-2, but you didn't specify who places where.
Max Checo.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
And the reason why, and I know that's such a homer take, Checo's race pace in Baku was nowhere close to Max's. And yeah, he had a great qualifying lap. I think I have him out qualifying his own teammate. Race pace is everything. And he finished like 20 seconds ahead of his own teammate. I think they were on the exact same strategies, maybe 1 or 2 laps difference of when they pitted under the safety car. But they basically started on the same tires. Max started a place behind Checo, finished 20 seconds ahead. Like no extra stop for fastest lap.
The thing about Checo, he doesn't really have the best history in Canada. I think his best ever finish here was a third place back in like 2012 or 2013. I can't remember exactly, but he doesn't place very high here. Couple that with the way he races. He's very hard on his tires in the first few laps, and pair that with a rough track surface in Montreal. He could really kind of screw himself over as far as strategy goes. He may have to pit earlier than expected, and that might screw up his positioning on the grid as well. So I'm not sold on Checo having a good race weekend in Montreal.
Yeah, I mean, tire deg has been another theme this year. We didn't even really bring that up on this podcast, but tire deg is definitely going to play a significant factor in this week's race. And to be honest with you, the more I think about it, the more I kind of equate this could be like another repeat of Australia, where like Ferrari actually might not have the best race pace, but they're better off on tire deg and they can actually go longer on the stints. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be super interesting, because what I really, really hope, and I hope with our predictions, I hope we are not robbed of an electric battle for podiums like we were in Baku with reliability issues. And
I hope we get good. I hope we get good racing all throughout the grid. I hope we get, wheel to wheel battles, even in the midfield too. Yeah. We thought we'd get it in Baku, but we were, like you said, robbed of that. And we're overdue for some entertaining racing.
Totally agree. It's going to be great. I'm super pumped to go back to Canada. Guys, final thoughts heading into race weekend. We're like a day and a half away from FP1, so this is going to be absolutely electric. Sam, start with you. Final thoughts heading into the race weekend.
Let's find out what Ferrari's got in their shorts, because it's time for them to really face the music, and they need at least one of their drivers on the podium. And if both are off, then I think they're done. So big weekend for Ferrari. Let's see if they can minimize some damage.
Stefano, final thoughts.
Yeah, like Sam said, it's make or break for Ferrari this weekend. I have faith that it will be a make for them. We'll see where Chuck ends up if he takes his grid penalty. But like you guys say, I'm just happy to be back in Canada. Great race, very historic. Hopefully nobody ends up in the Wall of Champions this weekend. But that's why we go racing. We'll see.
Yeah, I think the only people that might be in the Wall of Champions is somebody who's racing in their home race this weekend. So hell yeah, brothers, fire it up.
Fire it up. Fire it up.
That's a wrap for us on today's episode of In the Points. Tune in this Sunday, June 19th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as we turn to our neighbors of the North for the Canadian Grand Prix. Ferrari will be keen to do well this weekend to slow the running of the Bulls, while Red Bull will look to continue to extend their lead, and hopefully Mercedes can sort out their porpoising issues and finally begin challenging both of the top two teams this year. Please like, subscribe, and smash all those bells and whistles so you never miss the hottest Formula One takes in the business. And tune in this Thursday on our YouTube channel where we will be exclusively posting Sam's bets as a video episode along with all of our other video podcasts. Thanks to all for listening, and as always, stay out of that dirty air and keep pushing.